Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. We have invited two speakers, Dr. Phyllis and Dr. George, to give us a talk. Dr. Phyllis is a professional consultant at USS Singapore, and also she is a tenure professor at NIE NTU. Her areas of specialization are sociolinguistics, literacy, and English language methodology. She is author of several textbooks adopted in Singapore schools and also have been a visiting professor at Harvard University and several Chinese universities such as Beijing Foreign Language University. So she also has been a member of International Advisory Board of the following journals, for example, January Asia, Teaching Education, and also Journal of Asia TEFL, etc. So for our second keynote speaker, which is Dr. George, he has taught for more than 30 years, mostly in Asia, but also in North America. At present, Dr. George is a board member of the Extensive Reading Foundation and the International Eco-Linguistics Association. He has published more than 200 academic articles, books, and also book chapters. Dr. George was a reviewer for many boards and also was invited to guest edit a special issue of the Journal of the Beijing Foreign Studies University. So they normally work with editorial groups and with publishers on a whole variety of issues. But one thing that they are particularly aware of is that when you submit an article to a journal, it could be considered a little big of a black box. So therefore, in this webinar, Dr. George and Dr. Phyllis will give an overview of publishing an English language journal and explain what is involved in getting your article published. While they are sharing their experiences and expertise, you can key your questions in the Q&A box, or if you want to save your questions till the end, maybe you want some of the prompts, so you can also save to the last separate session. We do have a separate 10 minutes Q&A session for you to share at the end of the webinar. Okay, so let me invite Dr. Phyllis to open up this black box.
Thank you, Ivy, for this opportunity to speak to our budding writers and academicians in China. I am also very honored to be able to share this presentation on what is a good journal article in the eyes of journal editors. I'm honored to share this presentation with Dr. George, who will continue with even more valuable advice after my presentation. So I'm going to begin now to give you the overall perspective on how to get your journal, your article published successfully in a journal. Now you can see from the PowerPoint slides the agenda for today, okay? And number one, okay, I will be going over with you the editorial process on what happens on submission. And then I will give you some tips. Many of the tips that I will be giving you, you will not be able to find it printed, okay, because these are insider's tips. As you know, I have sat on the International Review Board of several journals, and I have been in academia for about 40 years. So, so if you stick around, you will get some valuable tips, okay? And then I will tell you also how to respond to reviewers' comments. So after the first 20-25 minutes, I will hand over to my colleague, Dr. George, who will then tell you how to improve the acceptance, success, the writing and so on, the organization, and a little bit more micro. Okay, so that's our agenda for today. All right, so dear friends, if you look at this slide, okay, if you look at this slide, you can see an overview of the entire publishing process. It's important to have a broad view before we go into more specific things. So I'm going to give you the broad view, right? We will go level by level. If you glance at the slide, you will see the first level, which is submission, first line. Yeah? And then you will see the second level, which is review and accept. And then you will see the last level, which is publication. So let me go through it one by one, right? And after each slide, you're free to ask questions, all right? If you are a little shy to speak out, you can always write it in the chat, okay? So let me start with level 1. So in level 1, you can see the title is submission. How do you submit? How do you submit? Okay, now, if you want to be an academic today, right, you will have to show that you are current. One way to show that you are current and that you know what is going on in the world around you, as well as in the current developments of your specialized field, is to publish. If you don't publish, then people do not know that you are current, right? They think that you may have had your master's degree or your PhD, but that may be many years ago. And as you know, knowledge changes very fast. It gallops now like a very fast horse. So you have to keep writing, okay? So where I work, Nanyang Likuntaswe, right? We as academics have to publish at least twice a year in a journal, okay? Just to keep afloat. That means that just to maintain your job is not to be first. If you want to be first, you have to publish more than 2 journal papers per year. And if you publish less than that, that means you are underwater. Underwater, okay? So I know some of you are BA students. If you really want to have an academic career, I suggest you take the capstone program. If you're a master student, I suggest that you think long term, that you might be able to transfer your thesis topic to a PhD so as to save time. We're talking about mileage here. Okay, we're talking about being practical here. And if you're a PhD student, I think it's best while you are writing your PhD, okay, to begin to think of what articles from which particular chapters of your PhD dissertation you can begin to publish. Long ago, if you want to get a job in a university, you just have to graduate with a degree. Not anymore. Nowadays, if you want to get a position in a university, not only do you need to have a degree, either an MA or PhD, but you also need to show some publications. So if you don't have any publications, it's very hard to get a job. Therefore, while you are doing your master's or PhD, if you want to work in a university, you should begin to think of publishing so that when you graduate, you also have 2 or 3 papers to show the interviewing board. All right. So the first level tells you, how shall we submit? Now, the first thing is to find out which journal you want to submit to, right? There are thousands of journals, and in your own specialized field, right? Whether it's psychology or education or sociology or linguistics or phonetics or semantics or pragmatics, in your own specialized field, there are hundreds of journals. So what is your favorite journal? You will know your favorite journal. Look at what your teachers use. Look at which article you like. Every time you like an article, every time an article resounds with you, look at the title of the journal. You like it, so you remember the journal's title, okay? And there will be a few, there will be a handful of journal titles that you like. How do you know that you like it? You know you like it because every time you find an article which is interesting, it seems to belong to that journal. So that's how you know that you have an affinity, a liking for that journal. So that becomes one of your favorite journals. So before you submit, you must select a journal. Once you have found your favorite journals, you must look at, the requirements of how to submit to that journal. Okay, and so you look at their style sheet. Every journal have a style sheet. Okay, the style sheet tells you how many words is required. It tells you what bibliographic references you need to use. Do you need to use the APA system? Because different journals have different citation systems. The style sheet, and you can see on the screen that this is a representative style sheet, but every journal has different guidelines, okay? And it is very important to read the guidelines carefully. Let me tell you, in my own collection, I have collected about 30 or 40 journals, which I like, so that when I want to submit to one of them, I can just click on it and look at the guidelines. I need to know the number of words. I need to know how they present their article, whether there are subheadings. Are the subheadings on the left or on the right? Okay, what kind of citations do they use? What is their emphasis? The style guide, the style sheet will tell you, do they like macro stuff? Do they like micro stuff? Do they like practical stuff? Do they like theoretical stuff? What kind of research do they like? Do they like quantitative research? Do they like qualitative research? What are their topic of interest? We need to know this to save time before we submit. Because if we don't know what the journal is focusing on, we don't know, it's possible, very possible that you will get a rejection, okay? Because every journal have their pet ideas, right? TESOL journal have certain kinds of articles that they like. Look through it. Language teaching is very, very different. TESOL journal is language teaching journal is also language teaching, but they have different emphasis, okay? Asia TEFL, where I'm one of the editors, also we have a different emphasis, okay? Every journal is a kind of boutique. Boutique means we have our own preferences as to what we are looking for. So dear friends and students, before you submit, please find the journal and research what it likes or dislikes, okay? print out their style sheet before you even submit. Okay, so that's the first rule. So we've talked about the first level. Ivy, do you mind going back to the previous slide so that I can talk about the second level? Yes, let's talk about the second level now, okay? And the second level is you found your journal, all right? You like this journal and you think they will accept it, okay? So you send it to them. Look at level 2. Okay, so you send it and the editor will receive it. Okay, so the editor will receive it and the editor will look at it and see whether it's suitable, whether you have all the guidelines listed in the style sheet, the number of words, you know, what they want, the focus, whether you followed everything. And if you have, because I've told you to look at the style sheet first, and you've done everything correctly, and you have pinpoint their focus of interest, then the editor will accept it and then say that I will send it to the reviewers. So this is the second level. The editor has to accept it because you have followed the style sheet guidelines and you have shown that you know what the focus of the journal is. Okay, so the editor will then think about who to send it to, which are the reviewers. Usually average is 2 reviewers, but some journals have 3 and some have only 1. Okay, but let's say that the average is 2. So they have to find 2 people to read your article and both of them have to accept your article. They have to find 2 people in your topic field. Okay, whatever you write about, let us say that you're writing about phonetics. Then they have to find 2 reviewers who are experts in phonetics. If you're writing about translation, they have to find 2 reviewers who they think might be interested in the topic you are writing about. I suggest, okay, and here's a tip for you that you won't find anywhere else. I suggest that in your bibliography, in your references, you should think already of possible reviewers, okay? Because some of your citations might be possible reviewers, all right? So because, you know, editors have to find reviewers. So you kind of know roughly, you know, because you are writing in this area, who might be possible reviewers, okay? Now, in the style sheet, the editor's name is also given. So you know, all right? You can go and search on the web. Who is this editor? What does he like? What does he dislike? Which university is he from? What ideological school does he belong to? Who are his friends? His friends are all those on the editorial board. Look at the names on the editorial board. What are their preoccupations? What do they like? Read up some of their articles, all right, so that you know who might be your possible reviewers and also whether you have a chance to be accepted, all right? Don't just blindly send to any journal. Remember, it is a human being who will be looking at your article. It is not a machine that is looking at your article. Human beings have their likes and their dislikes, their preferences, okay, and their own belief systems of what makes a good article. They have their own yardsticks. They have their own favorite topics. Be aware that the review is done by human beings. And every article, you know, is actually a kind of a school. A school means a group of people with roughly the same preferences and ideas, with roughly the same interests. And when they accept your article, they are thinking of whether you could help them achieve their interest area. If you say something that they don't like, even if you have a brilliant article, you will be rejected. Okay, so please look at the style sheet, look at the editor, look at the board of reviewers. Okay, look at the editorial board. Remember, it's a human being who will make the decision, right? So that's second level. Okay, third level. So you got through the first level, the editor likes it. The editor thinks that, yes, you belong to our school. Yes, I think we can accept you as a member of this journal. Yes, we like to have you. We like your ideas. I think your ideas will promote our agenda. Whatever their agenda is, should be apparent from their style sheet. So they accept you and they got 2 reviewers. Now we go to level 3 and the reviewers come back. Dear students, the review process usually takes about 6 months. Okay, and when the reviewers come back, you have to hold your breath because it's either whether they like it or they dislike it. Okay? They like it or they dislike it. And if they dislike it, then it will be an immediate rejection. Okay, but if they like it, they may say you have to modify this and that. Ivy, can we go to the second slide, please? Yes, okay. So after the third level, which is the reviewers, then we may have either immediate rejection, which is good. Why is it good? Because then you don't waste time. You only, firstly, if the editor rejects you, it's quite fast, usually within 1 or 2 months. If the reviewer rejects you, that's usually about another 6 months. Okay, so 1 and 2 months plus 6 months is 8 months. So not so bad, you only wasted 8 months. Okay, but if they ask you to review, okay, ask you to revise. What kind of revision? Okay, so how do we revise? All right, how do we revise them? Okay, so let's go to the next 2 slides. Okay, how do we revise? Okay, so here are some tips for you. Okay, you will have to revise. Either you agree, they ask you to change this line or that line, modify this sentence or that sentence. They may even ask you to include this reviewer or that reviewer. They may ask you to include certain citations. They may also ask you to delete certain paragraphs. So it's up to you. You can do exactly what they want. Or you can say, I don't want to delete this paragraph because I think this is important. Then you explain to them why. Okay, you don't have to do 100%, right? If you want to do 70%, 50%, you need to explain. But you run the risk of the reviewer rejecting your explanation or the editor is rejecting your explanation. Now, many editors, they will listen to their reviewers, okay, usually. Okay, otherwise, the reviewers will get angry with them. All right, like, oh, you have override my decision. I'm not going to review for you anymore. You see, editors have a big problem finding reviewers. Most reviewers do it for free. Most reviewers are not paid. So we are just doing it because as an obligation to academia. All right. So we're doing it as a favor to you, dear editor. So if you are going to override my decision, then next time, please don't call me anymore. Right? So for you as a writer, you have to remember this, that you should try as much as possible to humor the reviewer and accept his revisions. Okay, now so you have to revise. Usually, there will be some revisions for you. It depends, okay? Some revisions are easy to do. Some revisions are hard to do. So it depends. Some revisions may go to and fro, to and fro. So it may go 2-3 times back, or some revisions very good, accepted immediately. Very lucky. It can be 1 time, or you can have 2 revisions, or you can have 3 revisions. I don't know. But let me just tell you that the average time to publish a journal article is about 2 years. We're talking about international refereed articles, okay? It's about 2 years, right? So this is because the editor looks at it, the reviewers look at it, the modification has taken place, and then after that, they will send to the publisher. Ivy, let's go to the first slide again. Okay, look at the third line. Look at the third line. Third level. Okay, so once the revision process is over, the reviewer is happy and the editor is happy, then we will have the publisher. Okay, and the publisher will also ask you to proofread again, but this time, anything that the publisher asks will be quite superficial. It will be like getting rid of the pimples on your face. Can you do this reference a bit better? Can you rewrite this phrase? Can you change this word? It will be easy. It's just superficial. Superficial revision is quite easy to do. So third level is easy to do. But even then, it takes about 8 months, 9 months. Okay, that's why I say everything takes 2 years. Okay, so that's why I told you from the very beginning, okay, that you should start writing now. You should start thinking of publication, even when you haven't finished your master's, even when you haven't finished your PhD, because it takes some time. It takes time. Okay, and that's why I told you to please go and look for a journal and study their style sheet so that we don't waste time. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time because you didn't know their style sheet. You didn't know what they want. Studying the style sheet means to lessen the chances of a rejection. Let me give you some rejection rates. Okay, because I've been working on journals for a long time. Okay, most of you are from the humanities. I know most of you are also from English. So let's talk about English journals then rather than education. Okay, World Englishes. I know that there are 1 to 90 chances to get in. Okay, so out of 90 articles, according to the editor, okay, whom I have lunch with recently, he says that if you want to get in, we reject 90 and we take 1 for review. Okay, look at teaching education. I was on International Advisory Board. For every 54 submission, we only select 1 for review. Why? Because reviewing is a very expensive process. You are taking up a lot of people's time. So when we send for review, we feel that 80% it will be okay. All right. If we feel that 80% it won't be okay, we will not waste the reviewer's time. All right. Asia TEFL. Now, you know, I'm also in Asia TEFL. I'm a founding member of Asia TEFL and I'm on the International Advisory Board. Out of 30 articles that is submitted, we only take 1 for review. And the article that is being reviewed have an 80% chance of passing the review. So if I'm an editor, I want to make sure that my reviewers don't waste their time. I have to make sure that the article that I choose to send out to reviews will have at least 80% chance of passing. Okay. So we finished the first slide. Thank you very much. Next. Okay. So I think I have 5 minutes left, right? Yeah. So we've done the reviewers' feedback. We've done that. Okay. And then what is this next slide, please? Okay. So now it's a It's a two-way street. Now we go to it's a two-way street. Now let's look at this slide. Okay, on the left we have authors. Okay, like yourself, you want to publish, right? So and what do you you want to be recognized, right? And with more publication, you want your ideas to be known. Okay, but what about the editors? What do editors want? Okay, editors want good pieces. Good pieces. They want their journals to be recognized. Okay, and Scopus. I tell you a little bit about Scopus. Okay, Scopus. Scopus is like an online database. Okay, of about 40,000 journals. Scopus is about 20 years old. All right, so it has about 40,000 journals roughly, and about say 4,000 publishers. So it's a very, very good database. It's very reliable. Okay. So all journals, they want to be on Scopus because Scopus, if you're on Scopus, you have some prestige. That means it's recognized. How do we get on Scopus? Remember, many journals are not on Scopus. If you submit to a journal which is not on Scopus, it means that very few people will read your article. You will not be known internationally. If you just submit to your own local university journal, only your university will know about you. Other universities will not know about you because they cannot access it on Scopus. Okay, because Scopus is international. So every journal wants to be on Scopus. I remember as a founder member of Asia TEFL, we had a journal, and for about 8 years, we were not on Scopus. We could not get good authors. Why? Because Scopus wants to see our track record. They want to see that you've been publishing regularly. We cannot just give a recognition to any journal, right? We want to see what is your H index. Do people actually assess articles from Asia TEFL? Okay, how high is the H index? Okay, for retrieval of articles from your journal. How high is the H index for the authors of your journal? Okay, we want to know about this before we can accept you into Scopus. All right, and after many years, we were accepted in about 2010. So we are about 10 years in Scopus, but in the beginning, we were not. It was the same when I was doing the journal for the National Institute of Education, Singapore. For many years, we were just our own. If you want to publish, you can publish with us. NIE Singapore or MOE, Ministry of Education Singapore. But it's not in Scopus. Therefore, only people in Singapore know about you. You are not known internationally. However, okay, in the about 15 years ago, we realized it became very important. And then we try to get into Scopus, and we are now into Scopus. Who chooses what gets in? There is a committee. They want to see that you are very regular, that your publication record is consistent. Okay, they want to see that you also have emerging trends. They want to see, your index, H index of retrievals. All right, so you have to satisfy all of this. So before you submit your article, you need to know whether it is a Scopus journal. All right, because then you will know how many people will be able to retrieve your article. If you are looking for an international name, you will have to look for Scopus. Okay, so this is what this slide is telling you. All right, and nowadays, universities, they especially the better ones, okay, say the top 100 universities, they will look at the type of journal that you publish in. Okay, because there are journals and there are journals. So now will have to look at the type of journal. And every journal have a ranking now. Okay, so please you look at the ranking. Okay, our last slide. Okay, so my last slide before I hand you, okay, to my colleague, Dr. George, who will give you even further tips that you need. So my last slide is this. Please be realistic. Now that I have told you the process of submission, the process of finding a journal, reading the style sheet, knowing the editors, knowing who's on the board, knowing about the review process, and knowing about the publication process, and knowing about the time frame. Now that I've told you all about this, okay, please be realistic, okay? Please be realistic. If you are new, you're young, you can start publishing in local journals, never mind even if it's not Scopus. Just get some practice, okay? But in the meantime, you are working towards an international refereed journal, okay? Because you want to be known globally, especially if you want to have a job overseas. If you want to have a job overseas, you cannot just publish in your own school, in your own university, in your own country. You have to publish internationally, okay? So my last word for you about being realistic is that do try to understand the publication process, okay? And do understand that everybody will look at the type of journal it is published in. Try also yourself to familiarize yourself with tools like Google Scholar, with tools like ResearchGate, with tools like academia, because these are all about journals, right? This is telling you how to publish. Okay, you need to establish an academic identity. Remember, we are living in the age of algorithms and computer. All right. So how many people cite you? The citation index becomes very important. Okay. If you're looking for a new job, if you want a promotion, if you want a tenure, if you want to work overseas, they will look at your citation index. How high is your citation index? That's why I say if you just publish locally in-house, your citation index will be low. Okay, so think about this very, very carefully if you want a life in academia. Okay, and start thinking of an academic name. Why? Because you have to use that name all the time. Why? Because the algorithm is checking on that name. And if you keep changing your name, then your citation index is going to be very low. Think of a name and that you will always use that name so that the computer can track that name. Okay. Okay. So and try to make friends, academic friends. Okay, because you need to have friends who will tell you, okay, this journal is looking for this sort of article, or this journal is looking for this sort of article, so that your rejection rate will be much lower. Okay, so find interest groups, join interest groups. Okay, because interest groups usually have their own journal. And if you're a member of their interest group, you can get in easily. You must remember the rejection rate, so there are other things you can do. All right, so now my time is up. I have many more things to tell you that is not in the book, that are insider's knowledge.